heroic species kill. The captain agreed and told him to finish it quickly. The knight asked him to watch. He leveled his spear. He dropped the goblin in a single strike. Storm spear. He hurled the weapon straight at the goblin's chest, aiming for the biggest target, and shouted for it to die. Then everyone froze. The goblin caught the spear like it was nothing, and stared them down. How was that possible? The goblin drew back to throw it, and the captain shouted to activate the shield fast. The spear slammed into the center of the shield, and detonated. The blast rocked them. The shield was pierced clean through the middle. They stood stunned. It had nearly shattered from brute force alone. If it was a physical type, they needed distance. The archer set up her shot. One arrow was enough. Her aim didn't miss. That's what she thought. A hand punched straight through her stomach. She looked back, desperate, and saw another goblin laughing behind her. An assassin goblin. The archer collapsed. The swordsman yelled for them to hold formation and get the archer surrounded in the center. Now, the witch screamed for the captain to look where she was pointing. He turned. Goblins of different sizes and classes were closing in from all sides. In the forest, someone screamed for help again. Only this time, it wasn't bait to lure monsters. This time, it was them, genuinely calling for help. The goblins celebrated. The humans were theirs now. One goblin claimed the witch was his, and started to move in, but another cut him off. Loot belonged to the tribe. The chief had ordered humans captured, but one had escaped, and he didn't deserve anything. The four-armed goblin roared back. They'd already killed so many humans. They were strong enough to decide what to do with the spoils. The goblins started to rebel, shouting that they were the strongest and the tribe should follow them. One of them said Big Brother was the strongest here, so they'd follow him. He glanced at his reflection in a sword, and decided they'd take the spoils back to the tribe first. Back at the tribe, word spread that the heroes had returned. They'd captured several humans. Incredible. Their leader was named Gobu Tian. The protagonist sat quietly. An elf beside him, visibly nervous, asked if he could still control them. He didn't answer. Nothing. The four-armed goblin hoisted the human's captain. That one was his, and he was going to eat him. Lin Tian stepped up and told him to let the captain go. The human had information he wanted. The goblin looked down at him, sneering at his size, and flashed an ugly grin. If Lin Tian wanted the human, he'd have to trade him one of his women. The women flinched, shocked and scared. Lin Tian raised his arm to stop him. The MC looks up, anger burning in his eyes, and asks if he even understands what he's saying. The MC is their leader. The four-armed one turns back, points at the red-haired goblin and calls him Gobu Kwang. He says Kwang is stronger than the MC, so they're going to follow him. The MC looks at the two goblins and asks if Gobu Kwang is the one behind the rebellion. He says if the redhead beats the four-armed one, he'll forgive him. The four-armed one bursts out laughing, saying Kwang would never obey the MC. Kwang is the new boss, and they're going to kill the MC and rule the tribe. A hand suddenly clamps down on the four-armed one's head. He freaks out. When he realizes what's happening, Gobu Kwang is the one holding him. He's about to speak, and then ketchup sprays everywhere. Both the protagonist and the elf stare, stunned. The four-armed one lies sprawled on the ground and the other goblins recoil in fear. The redhead calls the MC leader, and says that ever since he evolved, he started to understand a lot more. He's not like those arrogant idiots. He respects the MC, but he also believes in brute strength. He calls the MC father, and says he beat the previous chief to become the new leader, so now he wants to try too. He's level 50, his stats are absurd, and his total score is 1200. The MC smiles. He gets it. The kid has the guts to challenge him with a power of 1200. Lin Tian lets out a fiery aura, and says Kwang's growth is impressive, but is he sure he wants to challenge him? The protagonist's aura looks like a Super Saiyan's. The other goblins start cheering for Gobu Kwang, yelling for him to destroy the MC and become the new boss, so they can take the women too. The protagonist closes his eyes and says it looks like plenty of goblins are willing to follow Gobu Kwang, but before they start, he wants to confirm something. He conjures a fireball, and says that if the heroic species goblins want to keep following the MC, they should come to his side right now. Otherwise they'll be wiped out. The captain thinks the MC is a priest, and feels impressed. He figures he might be able to run in the middle of this internal conflict. There's no way he can fight them here. Once the current leader dies, he can find a way to escape. Several goblins move to the MC's side. Kwang has made his choice right in front of the MC. He wants absolute power. He draws his sword. He charges straight at the MC, but the MC steps back and dodges the strike. The captain goes pale. The redhead is even stronger than when he captured him in the forest. The MC praises Gobu Kwang's skill and raises his sword in front of him. The blade flares with a powerful flame, and he tells Gobu Kwang to take the next hit. The redhead panics. He's never seen a weapon like that, and it's insanely fast. He knows he can't dodge, so he meets it head-on and slices straight through the fireball. The protagonist notices and realizes the goblin really is tough. Gobu Kwang drives forward with his sword, roaring. He's more than twice the MC's size. The protagonist lets out a sarcastic laugh. Kwang's strike slams into the ground with so much force it explodes. The two humans are terrified. The goblins watching from the protagonist's side tense up, unsure how this ends. Gobu Kwang stares in horror. The MC stopped his sword with one hand. Lin Tian praises his strength again, but says it's not enough. He used the unarmed defense skill, then pulls out his crossbow. Gobu Kwang's eyes go wide as he stares at the crossbow's power aimed right at him. All you hear at the end is a scream. The MC asks if he wants to keep going. Kwang says no more. He drops to his knees in front of the MC, his face covered in ketchup. Lin Tian is still impressed by Gobu Kwang's courage. The other goblins start begging for their lives, swearing they'll never disobey him again. They kneel and shake in front of the MC's power. He calls them useless cowards. They beg for forgiveness and swear to follow him forever. He tells Gobu Kwang to stand, and a healing skill is used on him. Eve Leia is the one healing him, and Lin Tian says he's got guts. As long as the redhead kept serving the MC wouldn't kill him. Of course he wasn't going to forgive the other traitors, so he tells Gobu Kwang to crush them on the spot. The redhead thanks the MC for sparing his life, and says he'll deal with the traitors right now. The goblins, desperate, keep begging for forgiveness, but Gobu Kwang crushes them easily. Lin Tian yells for the other goblins to devour the traitors and get stronger, and the goblins who stayed loyal celebrate the MC's victory. The captain, stunned, asks what kind of mess Lauder got himself into. This wasn't some random monster, it was way worse. The MC walks up to Lauder's cross and apologizes that this wasn't the show they were expecting. Did Lauder really think those useless idiots were going to save him? He calls Lauder naive. Lauder grits his teeth and says it was the useless sword saint's fault, the one who only knows how to hide in the city like a coward. Then he starts laughing, yelling that everyone there was useless. What impresses me most is he still hasn't completely lost his mind from all that despair. The captain admits he underestimated the MC, but tells him not to get too excited. The sword saint would show up as soon as she defeated the mother of dragons. The protagonist crouches in front of the captain and asks if he really thought the dragons would attack the city on their own. Things were going great for him. The captain laughs and asks if that means everyone in the squad and the City of Light were being played by him. He asks for a quick death, since he'd already given all the information the MC needed. He'd rather die than end up like Loder, so he asks the MC to grant him that. While Lin Tian stares at him in silence, the MC says he'll grant his request. Someone yells, "Sword Saint, Sword Saint," and she wakes up with a start. Sitting up in bed, she asks what the rush is. The dragons had been defeated. Did the knights come back? The knight says yes, but starts stammering. She tells him to stop stammering and say it. He says only one person from the squad came back. The others were wiped out. The Sword Saint jumps up in shock, still in lingerie, and I've got to admit that was way too nice to look at. Now fully dressed in her armor, she heads to the infirmary to see the survivor. He's still in terrible shape. She asks how he got hurt and what happened to the other knights. The adventurer says they ran into a group of goblins from the heroic bloodline and begs her to go save his companions as fast as she can. Nearly passing out, he warns her to be careful, because the goblins are abnormal. Then he finally stops talking. The healer yells for him to hang in there, and someone says it can't be just a bunch of goblins. A knight snaps that he doesn't care about bloodlines. They'll be exterminated like the lowly worms they are. The Sword Saint tells him to wait. Dragon invasions have been getting more frequent. They could attack at any moment, and she can't hold all of that back alone. She orders part of the troops to be sent out, and reinforcements requested to protect the City of Light. When the time was right, she herself would wipe out the goblins and the Dragon Mother. The knight tries to protest, and the mage asks if they have any chance of coming back alive. Someone steps in, cutting through the argument, and says she doesn't need to send reinforcements. Arrogance leads to defeat, and that's why the Order of the Silver Blade fell. It's Kasimov, captain of the Order of the Death Knights. He tells her to leave the rescue and the hunt for the goblins to him. The Sword Saint says a whole squad was defeated. Does he really think he can do it alone? He says he once faced 4 Titan warriors alone and survived, and even if those goblins are from the heroic bloodline, there's no way they can hurt him. Then he takes off his mask, revealing a face half burned through with a huge scar, and says they just need to wait for the good news. Back at the village, the MC asks the system to start the life simulation again. The system tells him about the Sword Saint's orders for Kasimov to attack the village, and that it would be a huge loss for the MC even if he won. The MC wonders if Kasimov is really that strong enough to cause massive destruction to the village. The system gets 3 mission options: change the village, prepare for the attack, or capture Kasimov first. He picks the last one and receives the mission to fight Kasimov. The reward is 20 points, but before moving, the MC needs to know who Kasimov is. In the middle of the village, a loud laugh rings out. Lauder is celebrating Kasimov's arrival, saying the goblins won't stand a chance. Their time has come. The guy already defeated several Titan warriors. The MC glances back and says Lauder seems to trust that man a lot. The MC asks what Titan warriors are. Lauder says they're powerful fighters, created with Titan genes by the enemy kingdom, capable of ripping monsters apart with their bare hands. Everyone's doomed, Lauder insists, laughing as he mocks them. The MC says Kasimov has a few tricks up his sleeve, but Lauder keeps yelling they'll be torn apart and skinned alive. Lin Tian thinks it's better to be careful. Maybe he should send someone first to test Kasimov's abilities. In the forest, Kasimov rides on horseback, following the trail left by the adventurers and goblins. The woods are empty, which feels wrong. He finds the remains of the Silver Squad and calls them useless idiots. The smell of blood is strong, intoxicating, and it excites him. Maybe this time he'll get to have fun destroying everything, however he wants. He hears cries for help behind him and turns, trying to place where it's coming from. He spurs his horse toward the sound. When he arrives, a blonde woman is kneeling on the ground, naked and trembling. He asks who she is, but she doesn't answer right away. She turns her back, and Kasimov recognizes her face. She calls his name. It's Evlea, begging him to save her. He shouts, stunned, that she's still alive. Riding closer, he asks if Loder is still alive. Crying, she says she escaped the goblins, but Loder isn't with them anymore. Kasimov tells her to point out where the goblin tribe is. She says it isn't far, but they're really scary, and Kasimov grows suspicious. He rides toward the tribe. Evlea screams for him to get her out of there, but he's already far away, yelling for her to figure it out on her own. He still has a mission. Kasimov's class gives him an attribute bonus whenever he works alone, and another when he takes down enemies. With Loder dead, Kasimov thinks that's perfect, no one to get in his way. He just needs to ambush them and stack the bonuses. Galloping forward, he rides over a rope and triggers a trap. He's thrown as his horse crashes to the ground. Kasimov flips and lands without injury. He looks back at the attack, and the one coming after him is Evlea. He demands to know why she still hasn't left. Evlea raises her staff and casts Holy Light Critical Strike, hitting Kasimov dead on. He yells, asking what she thinks she's doing. She says the master ordered her to defeat him. She casts again Sacred Impact, and hits him squarely once more. Purple smoke spreads in front of Evlea. Kasimov casts Soul Devourer. He grabs her by the hair and asks what kind of spell she's under to dare attack him, but she doesn't answer. He licks her shoulder and says, in that case he won't go easy on her. He doesn't like killing only monsters. He's interested in peeling her skin off. He points his sword at Evlea's neck and says this is a good chance to rack up bonuses. A voice says they get why he dared to go alone and try to wipe them out. The MC stands behind Kasimov, sword in hand, saying Kasimov's class stats and gear are pretty messed up. His sword has a power called Mortal Harvest, boosting crit damage by 90%. If Kasimov lands a sneak attack, that's bad for the MC. Kasimov is shocked. How did a low-level goblin steal his sword in an instant? Evlea runs to the MC, calling him master. Kasimov yells that she's lowered herself to being a slave to disgusting goblins. The MC pats her head and says she's been a great servant. He tells Kasimov he's disappointed. He thought Kasimov would be formidable, but he's just a psycho who likes killing. Kasimov says that even though he doesn't, if he knew how he'd found out about their stats, he'd easily deal with a disgusting goblin like him. Even without the sword or passive skills, he was fully capable of sending the protagonist to hell. Kasimov pulls a dagger and rushes the protagonist, who doesn't even bother to dodge. The next instant, two goblins appear behind the protagonist and Evlea, both heavily armed. The protagonist smiles and says that today, they'll see who goes to hell first. The dragon shows up too and breathes fire down on Kasimov. He's completely incinerated in a single hit. The guy speed ran going to hell and broke every record. Meanwhile, back at the Tianquang tribe, one of the creatures yells that the chief is back, and another says he even brought his prey. He throws something down in front of that man, tied up and ragged. He asks if that's the one known as the all-powerful Reaper, says it's a shame, and that after all that overconfidence, it only leads to death. The man says the other one is dead. Shouting about the sword, he calls her a miserable witch, and says it was a bad strategy to send men to defend the city. The leader thinks he can focus on evolving rare-type goblins now, and that this body will provide useful nutrients. He tells Gobshen this prey is the first one for him, and orders him to share the leftovers with the others. The goblins crowd in, excited, thanking their chief. He thinks that goblin was chosen because he has a better chance of evolving into a rare. The creature starts feeding on the remains, while the chief thinks he's hypocritical and sadistic, and those are perfect qualities for it. Picking up a fruit, he thinks that for the holy sword, he checked the system beforehand, and that she only commands 3 squads of knights, and the silver blade has already fallen. He knows that when word of Kasimov's defeat spreads, it'll crush the holy sword's morale, and she'll have to make a move to fix that. He decides now is the best time to use the simulation system to probe the future, so he orders the emulation system to begin. Excited, he laughs, thinking the holy sword really is an ambitious saint, but in this game he's the one who'll win in the end. Then he leaves and tells one of his underlings to gather all the goblins, saying that tomorrow he'll lead them to pull off something big. The goblins obey. Determined, the goblin leader thinks it's time to wipe them all out. Somewhere else, someone asks how the person was discovered. A gentleman says he's reporting to his lord, and that he was found outside the city. A woman says it was only one day, while another knight asks how those simple bastards could have killed Asimov. The woman says they've failed several times to wipe out the goblins, and the existence of that dragon can't be a coincidence. She concludes there must be some scheme between the dragons and the goblins, using the city's citizens and trapping them there in an ambush, and says they need to do something. She shouts, signaling for the Battle Roar squad and all members to head to the capital to reinforce it. Sometime later, several are riding toward their destination. One of the men says that even if they keep rushing to the capital like this, it'll take 4 days. He asks what will happen to the city's defense if everyone leaves, and asks to let him go alone to reinforce the capital, so they can protect the saint and the city. The other woman says he doesn't understand, and that this is her plan, because if they run into a goblin ambush, at least one of them can escape and warn them. She adds that if the Saint's forces defeat the goblins, the dragon outside the city won't be a problem, and that the real problem is them attacking this city with no defenses. While the knights say that's the plan, she says her job is to protect the knights' operation and send reinforcements to the city, and that they need to be quick. The man finally seems to understand. Suddenly the knight stops his horse, startled. One of the men says the bridge was destroyed and asks what they're going to do. The girl says it was broken on purpose, so they need to take a detour, but the captain says they can't, because that could be a plan to force a detour and set up an ambush. Since the bridge was destroyed, the spot is safe. He orders them to cut down trees and rebuild the bridge so they can get across before nightfall. Time passes in the forest. Finally the bridge is ready again. He says time is short and they need to hurry to cross it. The girl says it's weird that it suddenly got dark. The knight looks up and freezes. This is not good. A huge dragon rises over the bridge. Someone shouts to look at its back that there's a goblin riding it. Another man panics, yelling that the goblins and the dragons are allied. The goblin leader laughs, says they really work fast, and that they rebuilt the bridge instead of taking a detour. Did they really think they weren't going to get ambushed? The knight snaps back, asking if he's the one who destroyed it, swearing he'll kill him himself. The dragon breathes fire over everyone. Flames slam into the bridge as the knights scream for everyone to run. Fire spreads fast. The terrified girl talks to the captain about the bridge and curses those goblins. The knight vows he'll capture the leader and torture him to death. The goblin leader tilts his head. Is that all? He says he wants to see if they can beat his goblins and the mother of dragons that's coming. Someone yells they're surrounded by goblins. Someone else asks if maybe the wyverns could be coming. The woman tells the commander that if they show up, they won't stand a chance. The captain says if they can hold out, he can solve the problem in the city. The captain yells to Bane that he'll hold them off, telling him to use his sprint to get across and warn them. The warrior says he understands his commander. He charges the creatures shouting damn monsters, saying they even gathered there on purpose. The other guy runs through the monsters. He says the sooner the saint arrives, they'll wipe them all out. But the woman tells the commander something strange. She says they intentionally let that warrior escape, and she thinks the goblins did it on purpose. It can only be their plan. The leader confirms it, says they're right. There's no mother of dragons. It was a trick to lure that foolish woman to the city. He wonders what's going to happen to that city. The commander flies into a rage and charges, yelling at them. He orders them to take down whoever's riding the dragon. Says the city is already lost, but they have to hold out until the saint arrives. The two groups clash again. The captain fights a huge orc. He curses the situation, saying the creature is stronger than him, and there's something about its sword. Then it hits him. The orc is using Kasimov's sword. The goblin leader taunts him, saying he's not that tough. Says time is a little short as he pulls out a weapon. Then he jumps off the creature, dropping toward the ground. He says he'll finish off those knights before the saint arrives. The next moment, the goblins watch several knights on the ground, hit by an attack. The knight thinks he can't take it, cursing the situation. He realizes he underestimated those goblins. Then he gets hit in the head. The goblin leader says their time is running out, tells them to devour everyone quickly before the saint arrives. The creature says yes and thanks its boss. Sometime later, the saint arrives with her army. She tenses, thinking they got there too late. They find only the knight's remains. That warrior curses and says he'll get revenge for them. She says not even the bodies were left. Asks if that means the dragons teamed up with the goblins again. He says he saw a goblin who could control the dragons, and that he must have been the leader. The woman is surprised and asks him about it. He explains the goblin ordered the dragon to breathe fire and destroy the bridge, and that the commander and everyone else must have been killed by the goblins and the dragon. She says there are only a few dragon fire marks, and they look more like what's left of the goblins, adding that there aren't many dragons coming. Then she notices something and goes pale. She starts retreating, saying it was a bait strategy. She orders them to return quickly, because something is going to happen to the city. That warrior gets scared and says this can't be real. In the city, it's total destruction. The saint stands in the middle of it, staring at the tragedy. She drops to her knees and asks herself how this could have happened, saying this can't be true. She watches a child crying for his father. As he hugs him, the woman tells him not to do that, but the child tells her to go. She turns away and says they only pretend to protect them. When the goblins came, they were nowhere to be seen. She calls her a bad person. They ask who would even want her apologies if she can't protect them. What kind of saint she is. They say they need her, but she can't protect them. The girl doesn't know what to say. She just takes it, shaken. Everywhere she goes, people whisper that she's useless, that she can't protect them. A woman says he did it. Even without meeting her, he completely defeated the saint by crushing her spirit. She thinks she's eager to meet this guy, and time passes. Night falls on the goblins' tribe. The tribe leader walks among them, as the goblins murmur that he's back. He asks Gobdi how he handled the tasks from today, and whether there were any complications. Gobdi says the raid on the city was a success. He reports that some even surrendered willingly to save their lives, and they were captured. And as ordered, he sent a cart of gold to Kayuria and escorted her and her family out of the city. The leader praises him and says that from now on, he and Gobshana should prioritize devouring magical creatures. He thinks Kairia was the only one who believed in him in his previous life, and he believes the sacred sword is completely defeated now. Somewhere else, dragons fly above a forest. He thanks the mother of dragons for her help, She says she heard the saint collapsed in her bed and can't get up anymore, and that it's satisfying, but he needs to ask if she'll keep sending dragons. She asks what he'll give her as a reward. Flying back and forth every day is exhausting. The goblin leader tells her to look at something, but the woman suddenly kisses him. She says what she wants as a reward is him, and asks what he thinks about that. He asks if she's messing with him. She says she doesn't care if the mother of dragons ends up with a big belly, but she warns him not to get it wrong. If he refuses, she'll be pretty upset. He says not to take it the wrong way, but asks how a simple goblin could be worthy of the mother of dragons. She looks thrilled. She says he's not an ordinary goblin, and she sees the potential of a goblin king in him. Then she explains their ancestral dragon race has always revered strength. It's her nature. She wants to meet powerful beings and produce strong descendants. Smiling, he says, then there's nothing to do, he has to accept. The dragons around them watch. He gets an achievement, a bonus to all his stats, and he gets excited about all the stat points. He decides it's better to sneak out before the mother of dragons wakes up. He slowly backs away, thinking she's insanely formidable, and if he's forced to do that again, it could be a problem. From inside the cave, someone watches. She thinks he's just like she imagined, and that maybe one day he can lead the goblins and create a new world. Back at the goblins' village, someone screams, asking what it is. The woman asks if he's trying to push them away. He says he has the human women trapped for work now, so he can let them go. He knows elves are more useful than humans, so he wants to win their loyalty. One of them tells Kasana and everyone else that if they want to leave, they can go. The woman answers saying, "Dear mother." Our hero looks surprised by what he's seeing. She kneels and says that from what she's seen so far, he's not a normal goblin. She says she wants to stay with the tribe and follow him. He says she's smart, adding that she'll be valuable if she stays and promises not to bother the other elves. He thinks she sees him as a trump card for the elves. One of the elf girls screams for her mother, tears in her eyes, asking how she can decide to stay. The elf girls start saying that from now on they'll only follow their mother and the leader. Another says she's not leaving either, she's staying. The guy smiles, thinking it's what he expected. He says that since they chose to stay, they're not captives anymore, but his subordinates. He'll guarantee everyone's safety, and they thank him. He thinks that with the Holy Sword defeated and no outside threats, this is the best time to develop the Sacred Era, and the time to create heroic races. One servant complains the humans are way too small for him. The elf tells the leader they can help create others, and our hero says it seems like the only way. A goblin calls for his leader, saying it looks like one of them died and he should hurry. Our hero jolts, questioning that, and heads over. He asks what happened, but they say they have no idea. The guy was just hiding there, scratching himself up, looking like a madman. Then something weird starts happening. His body begins to change. The creature rises, laughing, and one of the goblins asks if he's coming back to life. That goblin turns into a level 50 creature, a mutant abomination with several powers. Our hero realizes that if it weren't for the stats he got from the dragon mother, he wouldn't survive. The creature says it didn't die, it just got stronger. Our hero says its strength and wisdom grew a lot, so he'll focus on this generation. 3 months pass. Back in the city of Bright, under a tavern sign, a man asks what they think. It's been a long time, and he wants to know if the Holy Sword will recover. Another says he doubts it. A knight says it's just a bunch of goblins, and the Bloodstorm heroes could handle it properly. Everyone turns to see who's talking. It's the diamond-rank captain of the heroes, known as His Highness Sir Earl. After 3 months of constant breeding, they've built up 150 third-generation goblins. Meanwhile, the royal family issues 3 bounty notices for 100 gold coins. Adventurer groups of various ranks gather in the city with one goal: wipe out the goblin tribe. The terminal says that this time he'll face diamond and epic level opponents, so it tells him to prepare properly. He thinks diamond rank heroes are already among humanity's elite, and epics surpass even the Holy Sword itself. He wonders if there won't be any warning or guide this time, and if the decision will be completely up to him. The elf suddenly tells her leader there's a report. He asks what's wrong. She says the new goblins are almost mature, but the forest resources are running out and everyone's getting hungry. Our hero agrees the resources aren't enough. On top of that, the city's situation is turning abnormal. They need to relocate somewhere more suitable. He stands and orders everyone to move. The elf says she'll handle the preparations. Sometime later, at a lake near a mountain, someone says the cave behind the waterfall leads into a deep tunnel complex, perfect for a home. He leads the group inside. He calls over 2 subordinate goblins and orders them to secure the place, make it safe, and watch the captives and the children. Everyone gets to work. They set up torches to light the tunnels. She declares this will be their new home. They're to follow him, and he'll make sure they have a good life. But anyone who breaks the rules dies. He thinks the tribe is established. Now he needs to investigate what's happening in the city. If the system is right, the adventurers will move ahead with their plan. Meanwhile in the city, someone sets down a mug of beer. The attendant asks if His Highness shouldn't be hunting only high-level monsters, and if he's really planning to deal with the goblins again. Earl says he has to handle it this time to save his useless cousin Loader. The innkeeper looks like he understands. Then someone yells, calling for Caesar. He says Caesar takes care of everything and keeps the reward, so what's his goal in going there? The room murmurs confused. Caesar says he's taking the reward to wipe out the goblins, and they'd better pay him about 1,000 gold coins. Someone asks why the mage is there. Another says he's the leader of the diamond rank heroes, Grey Hat. Someone mutters that the old man is pretty fired up, and asks how he dares. Then someone laughs out loud. He asks if they think they can act just because the holy sword went crazy, and tells them not to forget the adventurer Lucilina is there too. People go pale, whispering about why someone that dangerous would show up, and that they heard she even kills good people for money. Earl asks if he's a wandering hero who's also there because of the goblins, but the man says he's not interested in goblins, he only came to kill dragons. If he can take one down, maybe he can become an epic rank adventurer. Then he adds that he should warn him not to underestimate goblins. They're low level, but their ability to evolve is scary, especially mutant species. The old mage says he's got a point. He's lived about 100 years, and has seen more goblins than women. This low-level species has been around since ancient times, the enemy of all races, and even after all these years they still haven't disappeared. He takes his beer and says wiping out goblins is a pain, and if it weren't for the reward he wouldn't bother. Earl says that's true. Even the saint and the knights struggled and took losses, so they need to move carefully. He asks the old man why they don't put together a group to deal with the goblins, and when it's complete the whole reward can be his. The old man laughs and says they have a deal. Since His Majesty is so generous he'll form a group with him, though the old man seems kind of sly. Some time passes there. They talk strategy for the mission, all focused on violence. He says charging straight into danger can lead to all kinds of unknowns, and they should make a plan. Someone says he's being too cautious, that it's a problem, and adds he might not get involved personally. The young man looks at him, confused. A man in fine armor walks up, and Earl thinks he's weird. The old man says he didn't expect the Goblin Slayer to be here, and asks if he can talk. The young man tenses up. Goblin Slayer. He apologizes, saying he didn't recognize him. Goblin Slayer says he doesn't want to be recognized, and asks what he needs. His Highness thinks he's a really strange person, and even his voice sounds disguised. The old man says this man once killed a goblin chief, which means he's killed thousands of goblins in battle. Earl is shocked. Then he asks if he'll join them to wipe out the goblins together, but the man says he doesn't need a group, they just get in his way. The mage asks what there is to be proud of and tells him not to come crying for help when he gets captured by goblins. He says they should stop wasting time, attack first, and not let that guy steal their glory. Then he asks if they shouldn't prepare first. Sometime later, the goblin hunter leaves the city. Our hero watches from the top of a hill. He activates Sharp Eyes and sizes him up, realizing he's a level 65 human goblin slayer with a bunch of related skills. He freaks out a little when the guy's power jumps from 1,000 to 3,000, wondering if the system is glitching. But the system says there's no problem on their end, and apologizes. Sometime later, a group on horseback rides out through the city gate. Our hero gets curious. He sees Geyser, a holy knight with power around 1,300. Next to him is Gru, an archmage with power around 1,400, a tough guy to deal with. He figures those two diamond-level guys shouldn't be that hard to handle. He thinks he definitely needs to keep an eye on this goblin slayer. Sometime later, in the ruins of the Sky Fury tribe, that group of adventurers moves through the area. The old man says it's weird. A goblin tribe that big should have been discovered a long time ago. They should have found plenty of signs. The group leader calls to the old man and asks him to check something. Then he puts a lock of blonde hair in his hand. The old man brings it to his face and smells it. He says if he's not mistaken, it's elf hair. The young guy asks how elf women could be helping goblins, and says it can't be. The old man says they searched the whole forest. They can't be hiding there. More likely they relocated and covered their tracks. He explains those butterflies are specially made to sense elves. Maybe that way they can track the elves and the goblins. The butterfly starts flying around. He says the flower butterfly lost the trail, asking if they must have crossed the river. He says maybe they should wait for the goblin slayer to show himself, then make the first move. But the old man says that's unnecessary. He tells him to look over there, across the river, near the edge. Ahead a goblin appears. The boy orders his men to grab it. Nearby our hero watches. Everything's going to plan. The prey took the bait. Then something pulls his focus. That goblin hunter is at the lake's edge. He'd planned to deal with those two first, but he didn't expect this one to show up like this, wearing that curious smile. Then he freezes. The adventurer takes off all her armor and steps into the water, revealing she's an elf. He's stunned, wondering if the goblin slayer is actually a woman. She doesn't look completely human, and her skills are exceptional. Who has the leisure to take a bath in a situation like this? That isn't normal. For the first time he feels something unnatural. Did she notice him? Is she trying to lure him out? He jumps onto the dragon and takes off, flying on its back. This woman's crafty. He'll deal with the other two first. The goblin huntress looks up, wondering what kind of intelligent species that is. She seems excited, thinking she'd love to savor this experience. Sometime later, the weak goblin lies defeated on the ground. The young guy says it's stopped, and tells everyone to stay alert. The tribe is close. Suddenly flaming arrows rain toward the group. The old mage orders everyone to fall back as he casts. He hurls fire into the incoming volley. It's a trap. The young guy says they almost got caught. The old man still has his skills, but it's not over yet. Stop talking. The mage shouts. They're there. A huge mutant goblin comes charging in. Gru yells that it's a hero-class goblin, and tells everyone to focus their attacks on it. The mage fires a fireball. The goblin doesn't expect it. It looks like a direct hit, but aside from its clothes, it's fine. The old mage can't believe it. As the monster keeps closing in, he wonders how it's still alive after that. Then the leader tells them to look around. The goblins are closing in, and they're all elite. Why do they have iron armor and weapons? He can't let it get close. Leave that to Cecil. He casts Fountain of Life, restoring everyone's power. Another adventurer uses a mid-tier